House Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows from North Carolina and House Freedom Caucus member, former chairman. He's been dethroned. Jim Jordan is with us. You know, so I'm looking at, look, maybe you guys have more insight than to what I'm actually reading here. The fact that they were even debating limiting the number of beds for illegal immigrant criminals, I mean, is beyond the pale to me. You know, if you were 16,501 and you just committed murder, basically they were saying you couldn't detain that person. But what's your overall impression of the deal? I think, knowing you both, you probably, like me, think it's atrocious and a swamp deal.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, Sean, let me just tell you, not only is it an atrocious deal, but it is a total capitulation. I'm at the point where you look at this, and yes, the president may end up signing it to keep the government open, but he better make it very clear that he is not in favor of this. You only get what you reward, and he is about to reward Congress for not doing its job and continuing to do things the way they've always done. Only in Washington, D.C., Sean, think about this, only in Washington, D.C. can you expect applause for passing a $1.37 billion border security measure when it takes $25 billion to get it done. I mean,
but let me say this. What if the president signed the bill, kept the government open, because then we don't have to go through, you know, another 35 days of Democrats pretending like they care about furloughed employees when they won't even sit at the table and negotiate. He takes the 1.35 of the deal for the border and then simultaneously declares a national emergency for the rest of the money.
Well, he should definitely declare the national emergency. I think there was a couple takeaways I had. You know, first there was the irony. At the same time the president's giving this great speech in El Paso, Congress is putting together a bad deal in Washington. It is a bad deal. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. But you may be right. He may end up signing and say, look, it's a bad deal, but I'm going to pocket the money and I'm going to declare the national emergency, and we're going to go down that route because we know, just what you said earlier, Sean, we know the drug problem, what the president said last night, the drug problem, the gang problem, the human trafficking problem, it is a national emergency. I'm going to start down that road, and we're going to get this done no matter what.
Okay, now in that sense, you know what's going to happen. The media, the hate Trump media, and the Democrats, at that point are going to realize that he outplayed them, that he got money up front, and then he's going for the rest on his own like he said he would do. Now,
well, yeah. They will see that, but they'll fight it in court, and this president was willing to fight back. Jim and I have been talking about that even as recent as just 30 minutes ago. The president is a fighter, and he's going to fight. But here's the one area, and I very seldom disagree with you, Sean Hannity, but here's where I disagree with you today. I think the president should declare the national emergency today. To heck with waiting for the bill to be signed. To heck with this whole process. There is nothing that precludes him from doing it today. If this is the best they're going to offer, let him declare it today. Why
not take the 1.35 and then declare the emergency? Then he's got money to work with while he's fighting it out in the courts. It's not like they can spend it all in a month or two anyway.
Well, that's an option.
In other words, because you know what the Democrats will then do, they'll pull the 1.35 off the bill.
Well, but if we did a continuing resolution, you'd have right. $1.36 billion anyways, Sean. And see, here's the whole
that's
thing.
A good way to do it too. Listen. All of us agree this is garbage.
Yeah, and I mean, and if there's any Democrat out there that thinks that the president is not going to declare a national emergency,
they're dreaming.
They are dreaming, and so he's going to do it. So he might as well go ahead and do it today. Let them put up their protest today. They need to go ahead, and the American people need to see that this president is serious about building the wall. You and I and Jim knows that he is. But it is important that he goes ahead and acts on it.
Sean, here's the other thing this bill underscores, just how radical the left has become. To reduce the number of detention beds for criminals, for people who do harm, violent people potentially, this is how open borders, 70% marginal tax rate, Green New Deal. They won't stand up when the president talks about the sanctity of life. They won't stand up when he talks about capitalism and condemn socialism. And now they want to reduce the number of detention beds. So that in and of itself shows how ridiculous this legislation is. But the president he is going to get this wall come heck or high water. He's going to make it happen. And the sooner he can declare this national emergency, in my judgment, the better now.
Yeah, look, I think that at the end of the day, I think it's a good deal for the president just to do it alone. If he does this alone, then I think the president is doing much, much better. And it shows his commitment, his tenacity. Now, there is this other pot of money that the president has available to him. We've all been talking about it, some $900 million that he can also reallocate to the wall immediately, too. Isn't that part of the deal?
Yeah, sure is, Sean. And he can access that under the 284, 274, not using the national emergency, but he can allocate that or go get that money, use it for enhanced fencing and everything else on the border. He should do. My approach is all the above. Do that, declare the national, do everything he can to simply do what we told the American people we're going to do and build the border security wall.
All right, so in that sense, Mark Meadows, the president is keeping his promise regardless of what a crappy swamp deal this ends up being. And again, he doesn't want to be blamed for shutting down the government. 72% of the American people support his plans, according to CBS, on immigration, so they'll see him acting decisively. And why do I believe if you use, U.S. C-284, which I know both of you are familiar with, the language is clear, especially on the issue of drug interdiction, that the president has the right to build barriers on our southern border with the military.
Well, you're exactly right, Sean. And listen, you and I and Jim Jordan all believe that this president is serious. And as Jim was saying, he's going to build it one way or another. But it's where is the money going to come from? And I do believe that the $900 billion or so that he could get from one of the executive tools in his toolbox gets us part of the way. The national emergency, and I guess if I were advising him, I would say use one of the sections of law that doesn't require a national emergency today, pass the rest of the bill that is put before you, and then declare a national emergency at the end of that. Have all of that there, but as Jim was saying, there's 2 or 3 different options he can use. Use them all. Use them all.
All right, got to take a quick break. More with Congressman Mark Meadows, chairman of the Freedom Caucus, and former chairman Jim Jordan, as we continue. All right, as we continue with the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Mark Meadows, and also Congressman Jim Jordan. So, Jim Jordan, even though the bill is bad on the border particularly, which is what we care about, if the president couples that with the $900 million that we all know is available at his disposal any time, which he will use now. And again, he said last night, this is about now finishing the wall. Then he declares a national emergency for the rest. That sounds like, okay, it might take a few extra months, battle in the courts. I think he wins in the Supreme Court because the left will go judge shopping, probably to the Ninth Circuit. Okay, goes to the Ninth Circuit, which gets overturned 80% of the time anyway, makes it to the Supreme Court. I don't think the Supreme Court can ignore that issue. Do you?
I don't. I mean, you never know what the court's going to do, but I don't understand there'll be a few steps in along that path. So if, in fact, he declares a national emergency, I think Speaker Pelosi will do some motion of disapproval, resolution of disapproval. That will pass the House. The Senate's likely to do something as well. The president vetoes that. There's a veto override attempt. We will, of course, vote with the president. There won't be the votes to override his veto. So it's going to be a long, drawn-out process legislatively. Then, as you rightly point out, there will be the process in the court.
Would you be upset if he signed the bad bill to get the 1-3 immediately to add to the $900 million and declare the emergency?
Yeah, I think that's where it might end up. We don't like the bill. We're just like you, Sean. We think it's a bad bill. We would rather see him declare the national emergency and do a short-term CR and see if we can get something better. Probably can't. So he may go ahead and sign and say, look, it's a bad bill. I'm reluctantly going to sign this, and then we're going to do everything else that I can use under 284 and under the national emergency.
Well, the truth is he's never, with this Congress, these radical Democrats, he's never going to get the money he wants because
probably right.
They've proven that they hate Trump more than they care about furloughed workers or DACA or Dreamers.
Right. Well, they're more about stopping the president than they are about helping the country, and that's the fundamental problem we face. So in that climate, you are probably right. He's probably going to have to reluctantly sign this bad piece of legislation and then do everything else we've talked about.
Last word. Mark Meadows.
Yeah, and so Sean, Jim's right. Here's the only problem that I see with signing this deal, and I do believe the president's going to sign it. And I'm not going to beat him up over that because I know that he is serious about a national emergency. Here's the problem. It reinforces bad behavior that continues to happen decade after decade on Congress.
Now, that I agree with, but again, it gives him the money in the interim to keep fighting and building while he's fighting the emergency issue.
That is correct, and a continuing resolution would do the same. But you're right. Listen, it's a tactical call. At the end of the day, I fully believe that he signs this deal, and the jury will be out as long as he continues through with executive action. I think the vast majority of Americans will applaud his efforts for fighting on their behalf.
All right, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.